Few individuals have had a greater impact on the course of history than Adolf Hitler. His rise to power transformed Germany, reshaped Europe, and ultimately led to the deadliest conflict in human history. Between 1933 and 1945, Hitler's government launched a series of political, military, and ideological campaigns that would leave tens of millions dead and much of Europe in ruins. Today, using Minecraft, we're reincarnating the story of Hitler, the rise of Nazism, and the event that led to World War II. This video is intended solely for educational and historical purposes. The goal is not to glorify these events, but to understand how they happened and why they continue to matter today. Chapter 1: Germany after World War I. Our story begins long before World War II. In 1918, Germany was defeated in the First World War. The conflict had devastated Europe and left millions dead. Under the terms of the Treaty of Versailles, Germany lost territory, faced military restrictions, and was required to pay significant reparations. Many Germans viewed the treaty as humiliating. Economic crisis, political instability, and hyperinflation followed. At one point, money became so worthless that people carried entire wheelbarrows full of banknotes just to buy basic goods. Public confidence in the government steadily declined. It was within this atmosphere of uncertainty and frustration the extremist political movements began gaining support. One of those movements would eventually change history forever. Chapter 2: The Rise of Hitler. Adolf Hitler was born in Austria in 1889. Before entering politics, he lived a relatively unremarkable life and served as a soldier during World War I. After Germany's defeat, Hitler became involved with a small political group known as the Nazi Party. Initially, the party had little influence, but Hitler quickly distinguished himself as a powerful public speaker. He blamed Germany's problems on political leaders, minority groups, and the Treaty of Versailles. His speech attracted growing audiences throughout the 1920s. Germany experienced repeated political and economic crises. When the Great Depression struck in 1929, millions lost jobs and savings. The Nazi Party used this instability to expand its support. By promising national renewal, economic recovery, and strong leadership, it gained millions of followers. In January 1933, Hitler was appointed Chancellor of Germany. Within months, Germany's democracy began disappearing. Chapter 3: Building a Dictatorship. Once in power, Hitler moved rapidly to consolidate control. Political opponents were arrested. Independent newspapers were shut down. Trade unions were dissolved. Opposition parties were banned. Germany was transformed from a democracy into a one-party dictatorship. The government controlled education, media, culture, and public life. Propaganda became a powerful tool. Through newspapers, radio broadcasts, films, and public events, the regime sought to influence how people thought and what they believed. Criticism became increasingly dangerous. The Nazis government demanded loyalty to the state and to Hitler himself. By the mid-1930s, Germany had become one of the most tightly controlled societies in Europe. Chapter 4: The Ideology of Nazism. At the center of Nazi rule was an extremist ideology. Nazism promoted racial hierarchy, authoritarian government, militarism, and aggressive nationalism. The regime claimed that certain groups were superior while others were inferior. These ideas had no scientific basis, yet they were aggressively promoted through propaganda and education. Anti-Semitism became a core component of Nazi policy. Jewish communities were increasingly isolated, discriminated against, and stripped of legal rights. Over time, persecution became more systematic and more violent. Understanding these beliefs is important because they influenced nearly every major decision made by the Nazi government. Chapter 5: Rearmament and Expansion. Despite restrictions imposed after World War I, Germany began rebuilding its military. New tanks were introduced, aircraft factories expanded, the army grew rapidly. At the same time, Hitler pursued an increasingly aggressive foreign policy. In 1936, German troops entered the Rhineland. In 1938, Germany annexed Austria. Later that year, Germany gained control of the Sudetenland region of Czechoslovakia. Many European leaders hoped diplomacy would prevent another war. Instead, these concessions encouraged further expansion. The next target would be Poland. Chapter 6. The war begins. On September 1st, 1939, Germany invaded Poland. Britain and France responded by declaring war. World War II had begun. Germany's forces initially achieved rapid victories across Europe. Poland fell, Denmark fell, Norway fell, Belgium and Netherlands were occupied. France was defeated in just weeks. By 1940, Nazi Germany controlled much of the continental Europe we know today. Its dominance appeared unmatched, and events would soon begin turning against Hitler. Chapter 7. The Holocaust. Alongside the war, the Nazi regime carried out one of history's most horrific crimes, the Holocaust. Millions of Jewish men, women, and children were systematically persecuted and murdered. Other groups were also targeted, including Roma communities, disabled individuals, political prisoners, and other deemed undesirable by the regime. The Holocaust was not a spontaneous act of violence. It was organized, planned, and implemented through government institutions. It remains one of the clearest examples of how prejudice, dehumanization, and unchecked state power can lead to catastrophe. The victims of the Holocaust are remembered not merely as statistics, but as individuals who lives were unjustly taken. Chapter 8. Hitler's Greatest Gamble. In 1941, Hitler launched Operation Barbarossa, the invasion of the Soviet Union. It became the largest military operation in human history. Initially, German forces advanced rapidly. Huge territories were captured. Millions were caught in the fighting. However, the campaign failed to achieve its objectives. The Soviet Union continued resisting. Winter conditions worsened. Supply lines stretched beyond their limits. What Hitler expected to be a short campaign became a prolonged and devastating war. Many historians consider this decision one of the turning points that ultimately led to Germany's defeat. Chapter 9. The Collapse of the Third Reich. By 1944, Germany was losing on multiple fronts. The Soviet Union advanced from the east, Allied forces returned to Western Europe following D-Day. German cities suffered extensive bombing, resources became scarce, militaries defeated became increasingly common. The regime that had once appeared unstoppable was now fighting for survival. As enemy forces approached Berlin, the situation became hopeless. Chapter 10. The Fall of Hitler. In April 1945, Soviet troops entered Berlin. Street fighting erupted across the city. Government institutions collapsed. Military command structures disintegrated. On April 30th, 1945, Adolf Hitler died inside the bunker beneath Berlin. A few days later, Germany surrendered. The Nazi regime had come to an end. The war in Europe was over. In conclusion, the story of Hitler and Nazism is not simply a story about one man. It is a warning about the dangers of authoritarianism, political extremism, propaganda, and hatred. The event was recreated today, changed the course of human history. Millions suffered as a result of decisions made by a regime built on intolerance and aggression. Understanding this history helps ensure that its lessons are not forgotten, because history is not only about remembering the past, it is also about recognizing the warning signs that shape the future.